Many years ago, when I was still new to this craft, I bought a can of walnut wood stain with the idea that I could make some inexpensive pine look like fancy hardwood. As you might imagine, I ended up with a blotchy project that was covered with what looked like tiger stripes and a hard lesson about finishing pine. Well, today I'm going to save you some heartache, not by telling you to stop using pine, but by explaining how you can actually use the unique characteristics of pine to your advantage and achieve an even better looking stained appearance than you may have gotten in the past. Even if you're a veteran woodworker, you're going to find this interesting. First, we have to understand why pine does what it does. These days, pine is used as kind of a general term to apply to any softwood from a coniferous tree, or a tree that bears its seeds in cones. Like all trees, conifers grow one layer per year, which forms a series of rings that you can actually count to determine the age of the tree. But pine tree rings are different in an important way. You see, while a hardwood's tree rings are made up of bundles of hollow, straw-like wood fibers, a conifer's rings are formed from solid cylindrical fibers called tracheids. In the early part of each year, these tracheids grow large and they're loosely packed together into what's called early wood. But as the year progresses, they start to become smaller and more densely packed into what's called late wood. Every ring in a coniferous tree is made up of both light-colored early wood and dark-colored late wood. And the ratio can vary from species to species and even from tree to tree. Because late wood is denser than early wood, it absorbs less liquid. So when you apply a dye or a stain to pine, the early wood is going to suck up lots of that color while the late wood won't. And the result is that unpleasant rustic appearance that's commonly called grain reversal, because the previously lighter parts that are early wood will become more saturated with stain and therefore darker than what had been the darker late wood. That's why pine generally looks bad when you stain it. But knowing this can help us to formulate a more effective coloring strategy. The key is to try to prevent the early wood from absorbing too much stain so that it will blend more evenly with the late wood. One way to do that is to pre-treat the surface with sealer. Now you can buy pre-stain conditioners, or sometimes they're called sanding sealers, off the shelf. But some folks just mix up a thin cut of shellac, which is essentially the same thing. I've even known some who mix wood glue with water and they make their own sealer. In fact, one finishing expert used to market his own pricey pre-stain conditioner that I'm pretty sure was just mostly glue and water. Now what these conditioners do is they soak in and they clog up the fibers, especially the more thirsty early wood part of the tree rings. Then when you apply a stain or dye on top, the early wood can't absorb as much color and the surface should be more even. This can take some experimentation though, because all wood is just different. You may need one coat of conditioner, you may need more. It's always a good idea to do some testing with some medium-sized scraps of the same material that you built your project from, and then you can see how the stain will come out with different conditioners applied. Another option is to use a gel stain. Gel stains are obviously thicker than regular stains and dyes, so they tend to sit more on the surface of the wood, like a glaze, rather than soaking into the fibers. The downside is that stain on the surface of the wood is more prone to smearing or even coming off when you apply an oil-based top coat like polyurethane, because that has solvents in it that will dissolve even fully dry gel stain. So if you do use a gel stain, I recommend spraying on a top coat, or at the very least, carefully brushing on the poly without going back and forth with your brush too much. A third way I sometimes stain pine is with a colored paste wax. Wax sits on the surface like a gel, but there's no top coat needed so it doesn't rub off. I especially like this method when I want an old mellow appearance, but I don't need a lot of protection. And because each coat of wax dissolves and blends into the layers beneath it, it's an easy finish to repair and an ideal one for a beginner. I've made a couple videos in the past about applying colored wax if you want to look them up. Of course, just because pine isn't walnut or mahogany doesn't mean it's not worth celebrating for what it is. A lot of beautiful furniture has been made from uncolored pine. There is no shame in it. Maybe just apply a clear finish or an untinted wax, even a soap finish, and let it age to a nice, naturally mellow color. Now here's something else that'll interest you if you're a small shop woodworker. Who says you can't get track saw quality cuts from a simple circular saw? Boratool's new clamp edge guide system is light, it's easily portable, and it's far less expensive. And with the optional router and jigsaw attachments, the system's more versatile too. Check it out at the link in the notes below this video.